To be held on Tuesday, January 14th, 2025, in the Cafe at Londonderry High School, 295 Mammoth Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire, at 7 p.m. The meeting will be broadcast on District YouTube channel as well as Cable Access Channel 8. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll get into the consent agenda. 3.1, upcoming meetings. January 28th, 2025 will be a regular school board meeting right here in the cafe at 7 p.m. On February 7th, 2025 will be the deliberative session and a small, short school board meeting right after, right here in the cafe at 7 p.m. On February 18th, 2025 will be a regular school board meeting right here in the cafe at 7 p.m. Could I look for a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you. All right, jumping into announcements, presentations. Filing period for candidates, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 through Friday, January 31st, 2025. There is one school board member, 3-year term, one moderator, 3-year term, one treasurer, 3-year term, and one school district clerk for a 3-year term. To file, please contact Kerry Stanley, School District Clerk, at 603-860-9369 or at kstanley@londonderry.org. Kerry will be at the district office on Friday, January 31st, 2025, from 3 to 5 p.m. for the purpose of the final filing. With that, we're moving on. We're going to start and open our public hearing for full-day kindergarten for the district office bond. I will look for a motion to open this public hearing, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Tim. I ask for a roll call vote from my left to right, please.
Aye, Kevin Gray. Aye, Tim Porter.
Aye, Bob Slater.
Aye, Sarah Laughlin. Aye, Amanda Butcher.
Thank you, and the floor is open.
Great. So what we've prepared, if Jason goes to the next slide, what the school board's deciding tonight is this warrant article moving to the deliberative session? And casting their votes, their support for or against it. So if Jason goes to the next slide. It is article number 2, the full-day kindergarten and district office bond. If we go to the next slide. Next one. There is the verbiage in total. Bob's going to read it in a second. Then I have about 10 to 12 slides that'll kind of push out all the facts that are out there. There'll be more coming. We intend to do our best to share as many facts as possible over the next 8 weeks, so the community feels like they're informed heading into the ballot box. But I'll turn it over to Bob to read the article.
What I'll do this evening, folks, is I'll read each article in full that is on the agenda tonight and will be brought forward to the deliberative after deliberation tonight. So I will read each one in as we go through this evening. Article 2, Special Article, Full-Day Kindergarten and District Office Project. Shall the Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,050,000 for the design, construction, furnishing, and equipping of modular classroom additions and renovations at South, North, and Matthew Thornton Elementary Schools to create additional classroom space to accommodate a district-wide full-day kindergarten program, and for improvements to the renovations of Moose Hill School to serve as district central administrative office, and to authorize the issuance of $9,050,000 of bonds or notes under and in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1 ET period SEQ period colon as amended colon, to authorize the school board to apply for, obtain, accept, and expend federal, state, or other aid if any, which may be available for said project and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. To authorize the school board to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof. To raise and appropriate the additional sum of $226,250 for the first year's payment thereon, and to authorize the school board to take any other action necessary or pass any other vote relative thereto. 3/5 ballot vote required. Fiscal year 2025 to 2026, estimated cost $226,250. Estimated tax 4 cents. 2026 to 2027, estimated cost $907,664. Estimated tax 12 cents. 2027 to 2028, estimated cost $886,731. Estimated tax 12 cents. Estimated tax impact based on 15-year bond with a 3.46 interest rate and the 2024 assessment. There you go, Dan.
Yep, we're good, so thank you. So here's how we got to that article. We listened to the voters from last March vote. There was strong interest in full-day kindergarten, but not enough. We needed to come up with basically a less expensive solution, which I'll go over in a little bit. We compromised. There was feedback that the current district office lease needs to be solved as well to gain that community support for full-day kindergarten. So it's kind of two needs coming together. We also planned around a smaller incoming kindergarten enrollment, which we've seen for the last 2 years, and we're assuming that's at least a 3-year pattern. And we researched multiple solutions to land on the current plan and go into voters in March. So if we go to the next slide, here's a very quick rundown of many months of hard work. There's lots of information from the summer we're going to post on a website next week so people can access this all. One option was just to return the same project from last year back to the voters again this March. Ultimately, that wasn't decided to happen. We also looked at a scaled-back Moose Hill, so kind of taking that project, building it around smaller enrollment that we're seeing now, and some compromises, and that was studied for many months over the summer, but ultimately wasn't chosen. Another option was to kind of look at expanding full-day kindergarten at Moose Hill now, and then whatever space we might have in the other 3 currently grade 1 through 5 schools with smaller enrollment. Ultimately, that also was not chosen. We also looked at moving the preschool district office to existing commercial property space and then use Moose Hill for a full-day addition. That was a very complicated project that we looked at for a really long time this summer, but ultimately passed on as well. We looked at moving the preschool to the high school and use Moose Hill for full-day kindergarten with that smaller addition. Very similar to 4, but just another way of doing that, and there's lots of reasons why we were not comfortable moving the preschool to the high school. We also looked at moving the 5th grade to the middle school and then placing full-day kindergarten to the 3 elementary schools. There are lots of reasons why we kind of passed on that one as well. And then we also looked at building a lot of modular classrooms at the Moose Hill campus to accommodate full-day kindergarten. And we passed on that one too, largely because of the larger price. If you go to the next slide, here's what we came up with. So LEAP, our 3 and 4-year-olds, will stay at Moose Hill. So they'll kind of be in that central wing and out to the temporary classroom area that's at Moose Hill. The other wing will be turned into office space, kind of generally a light touch, but also one that'll be transformed so that what is now classrooms will become office space. And somewhere by the fall of 2026, we would move the district office in there. First, we have to kind of move kindergarten out. And then full-day kindergarten by August of 2026 happens in Matthew Thornton, North School, and South School. We'd be adding 8 total modular classrooms. They're going to be really great classrooms. We try to give you a sense of what you're looking at in that picture is actually a modular classroom. There's a brick facade. We want these to blend in very well to Matthew Thornton, very well to South School, very well to North School, because they're going to be there for at least 15 years. And they're really good classrooms. We've been working with Ekman and Marinase, and they'll be customized, some of them. Some of them will be a little bit more standard, but they'll be really great instructional spaces for our kids, and they're going to blend into that environment. So if we go to the next slide, This is where they're going to go. There'll be 4 off of Matthew Thornton with bathrooms in them, and so that includes site work, an attached hallway. There's an attached hallway to every single one of these, so the kids are never leaving the building to go to these spaces. And, you know, we put 4 1,200 square foot classrooms there that can accommodate full-day kindergarten. If you go to South School and North School, it's a little bit different. We have 900 square foot classrooms coming off the 3rd grade wing of North School, because we actually have bathrooms in our 1st grade wing at North School, so that's where the full-day kindergarten would occur. So it'll be more for the 2nd and 3rd graders, those 2 additional classrooms. South School is kind of a mix, where we will have these 2 large 1,200 square foot classrooms with bathrooms if we needed them for kindergarten in that area, if we shifted things around. But the current planning, at least for 26, is to probably put them in the 1st grade in a similar spot that are near bathrooms, kind of in South School. But, you know, these additions will allow for full-day kindergarten, which we're really excited about. So go to the next slide. Big reductions from last year. You know, so the total cost is $9 million, still a lot of money that we're asking of the voters, but it's for these excellent modular classrooms, the site work, and the attached hallways, and then also turning the district office into office space, turning Moose Hill into office space. About an 80% reduction if you put both those projects together. That would be building the district office back across the street where it used to be for a long time. So really, really reduced costs. And I know there are always going to be questions on enrollment and how that's going to work. So basically right now, from what we're building, you know, we're projecting about 1,574 kids K-5 next year, probably 1,547 by the following year, somewhere between 77 to 81 total, you know, K-5 classrooms. What we're projecting right now is these shifting of 8 modular classrooms. We can handle at least 1,720 kids, and I'll raise that number in a couple of slides too. So we have the room to accommodate full-day kindergarten. We have the room in our master schedules to kind of make this all work. We just need to get the modular classrooms there. So go to the next slide. This is just a quick view of some of the enrollment. What I was trying to show is where North School and South School were 3, 4, and 5 years ago. Basically, by bringing full-day kindergarten to those buildings, we're refilling them where they used to be. Back in 2021, North School was at 493. We project 2 years from now there'll be a 473 with full-day kindergarten. South School was at 466, and they're back to 466. Again, we've had these 2 small classes in kindergarten and 1st grade that'll start to move through the system, kind of creating some of this space and room. Matthew Thornton's a little bit different if you go to the next slide. Their enrollment has dropped, just not as much as North and South School. Last year we had about 540 kids in Matthew Thornton. You know, a couple years ago we were in the low 500s. So this would probably put Matthew Thornton around 600. But that's why we're adding 4 classrooms there. That's why we're going to kind of keep an eye on space. And then the bottom chart kind of shows you know, where we were for a while. We were around 1,700 kids, K-5. These 2 smaller classes definitely changed that dynamic by about 150 kids, which is a lot, you know. And if we ever had to, if we ever had to worry about space, we would take some of our programs and make them more mobile. You know, so with this build, with these modular classrooms, we could probably handle anywhere from 1,840 to 1,900 K-5 students, which we haven't seen in a really long time. So I think there is room. I think this plan should work for the next 15 years. But if we suddenly get a big jump in enrollment, hopefully we have many years to react to it. We would need to see about 350 kids to 400 kids in a new class to really start to stress us out year after year after year. So if you go to the next slide. Besides the capital costs coming down, the operating budget came down a lot too. Last year, we were projecting about $1.2 million based on additional staff, and that was additional staff at Moose Hill. We're projecting much lower costs. Some of it is the lower enrollment, but some of it is the staff we had to bring to Moose Hill, more nursing, more counseling, more monitors, more janitors, more art teachers or music teachers and gym teachers, potentially more special education teachers. They exist in these 3 buildings. So we already have them. We don't need to invest the same level of resources in them. So, I mean, what we're conservatively projecting is probably 2 years from now, we would need at least 2 probably maybe at most. 2 professional staff, that would cost us about $180,000, so that's about 85% less than what we were projecting last year. So again, some of it's enrollment, some of it's the plan is different, and we're capitalizing on staff we already have. If you go to the next slide, I'm just trying to give a bigger picture of the savings globally. So there are a lot of savings and increased state revenue we get in this project. So we'd save about $280,000 in midday bus runs. We'd save about $260,000 without district office lease. In the first year of full-day kindergarten, we get an extra $1,000 per kid. Your state aid always runs a year and behind, so it would take a couple of years, but we would project about an additional $2,200 per student for state aid once that kicks in. There obviously are increased costs, those 2 additional staff and the bond, the capital costs. It'd be about $226,000 in the first year, and then an average cost for the next 14 of about $760,000. The other thing I want to point out before I go to the next chart was there are other capital costs that are coming off the books in these years too. In this year's budget, we already know we saved about $460,000 in the district-wide bond retiring. Next year, we have about $300,000 in the North School bond retiring. And then by fiscal year 2030, we're going to save another $500,000 from the South School bond retiring and the LED lights. So a lot of costs are coming down. There was a lot of, last week we were asking for kind of a broader analysis and bring it out. Amity and I worked hard. You go to the next slide. This is a good exercise for us. So we saw right away that, you get a couple years where you have initial upfront costs, for the first 2 to 3 years, we'll have to spend an additional $500,000 to kind of get this project started. But once those savings kick in, once those additional revenues kick in, somewhere between that 3rd and 4th year, we're actually going to start saving money. So we built a model. It's just a model. It's just an estimate over the next 15 years. But if we assume these costs escalate, these savings escalate each year, the revenue escalates a little bit each year, the costs escalate each year, we would project over the life of the bond, we would actually save about $2.2 million. Once those bond prices really decrease, that really compounds upon itself. And then when we're all paid with the bond, it could potentially be $1 million savings on the operating budget. So that was a good exercise for us. I was glad that this group kind of pushed us to come up with a more longer-term analysis, but we can kind of see it. Initial upfront cost, but then it turns to bigger savings and bigger revenue over time. So that was a real eye-opening analysis for us. And we'll push this out with all of our marketing stuff in the coming weeks. Go to the next slide. But why we're here too, I think why I feel we've been doing this for years, and we have, is it's about full-day kindergarten. That's the big educational gain we get from this. Our students would gain 103 extra days. That's a lot of time. I saw there's a website created today that was trying to promote that our kindergartners are doing fine. Yes, they're doing fine on the half-day curriculum. I think that what I saw from that website, they got it actually wrong. Our kids are doing fine on a half-day curriculum. But if you turn it to first grade, which we can put out pretty soon, it's the only grade where we're consistently behind the state and national averages. We're playing catch-up. We're playing a lot of catch-up in grades 1 and 2. We don't want to do that anymore as a school system. We want to take kids that are at a more advanced level in first grade and push them and get them farther up rather than catch them up. I know Bedford is asking for this in their operating budget for next year. I know Timberlane is studying it. They're the other small dots in the sea of green within the state. And I hope we can lead the way and get there as soon as possible, 26, 27, for those families of 3-year-olds, but also to make sure we can recruit and bring more young families into town. So full-day kindergarten is obviously a huge academic benefit for this project. Go to the next slide.
Can I interrupt you really
Sure,
quick?
yep, go for it.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you to quote you
That's
because
okay.
I was thinking about this while you were talking and I was looking for a slide. And I ended up finding it from last January. But in this slide, it says that 60% of our students are reaching academic expectations by the end of kindergarten, and then we're actually playing catch up. So in terms of people or kids being where they need to be, that's not accurate. And in a local district with similar demographics that did make this change, before they made the change, 1/3 of their students weren't reaching the kindergarten expectations in half day. When they shifted to full day, they reduced that to 1 in 10 students. So in addition to doing right by kids, it's also going to save money and additional programming for the kids that aren't meeting their benchmarks. So I just wanted to.
Well said, and then
Thank you.
we'll share all those all over again
Yep.
for a second year in a row. So the big points of the project before we turn over to the public, we heard you. This is much less expensive. I think there's a good compromise in town around a lot of needs coming together all at once. I think we built a solid plan for lower enrollment. If enrollment changes, we can react to it. This is a flexible plan. There are multiple projects going on, but we have a wonderful partnership with Ekman and Marinase to kind of figure this out. I think we've had a great fall and summer with them figuring this out. I think the moving parts are fairly understandable, but we'll do our best to explain it over time. There is not this big net loss of staff in this process. It'll be about redistributing the kindergarten staff into 3 buildings and helping them kind of bring their magic to those 3 schools. We think we have a solid plan that works with enrollment for the short and long term. These are going to be really high-quality buildings. They're going to be brick. It's going to look like they're part of the school. They'll be very safe because they're going to be attached. We're going to pump out as much as we can, kind of the information we just shared around the costs and that look. And in the end, again, the big academic gain is full-day kindergarten. So that's it in a nutshell. I know we've been talking about this for years, so I tried to be short. But I'm sure there'll be questions and things we can respond to.
Sure. Thank you, Dan. All right, I'm going to, this is a public hearing for our community members, so I'm going to open the floor to the public. If you could come up, state your name and address, please, and the floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you very much. Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. Thank you for this. This is an awesome idea. Thank you. I know you worked hard on it. You listened to what people said last year, that they didn't want to spend that kind of money. You listened to that they wanted to get the SAU out of the Taj Mahal. You listened to everything people said. They didn't want their kids on buses for an hour at a time, and I appreciate that. And I think it's absolutely great. But now I'd like you to possibly consider another option to consider. It's for the community and especially for the children, since we are here to search the children. And I'm glad you brought up Bedford, because this is Bedford's model. So Bedford, New Hampshire offers all-day kindergarten. They pay for half-day kindergarten. And it's my understanding, you said you'd be getting more funding from the state for all-day kindergarten, but Bedford's website even says that, and then I didn't check it, but the state only funds half-day kindergarten. They don't fund all-day kindergarten. So I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know, but that's according to their website. But what Bedford does is they have what's called K+, and I have copies of information on it. So they offer all-day kindergarten. You can have all-day kindergarten. You can have half-day kindergarten. If you want all-day kindergarten, it is up to the parents or guardians to pay for the second half. They presently charge, right now they charge $5,250 annually. If a payment schedule can be established, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, you may be eligible for a reduced rate. This program, they did a lot of studies around it, and one of the biggest things they came up with when they implemented this was the fact that it was the best for the children. If you have a child that is born on September 30th, 5 years old, they can start kindergarten. If you have a child that is born on October 1st, they have to wait almost a full year before they can start public kindergarten, which makes them almost 6 years old. There's a big difference between a 5-year, 0-month child and a 6-year-old child. And by offering the option of knowing whether, and not all children at 5 years old are appropriate to be in all-day kindergarten. That's proven in every single study you would want to find. This gives the parent the option who knows that child for those first 5 to 6 years the best of anyone, the option of doing what is best for their child. That's why they do this. And I think it is a fabulous model that I would like to see you all consider. It's a fabulous model for the children who we are here to serve, but it also is a model for the taxpayer, but the children first. So I'm going to give you some printouts of this.
So,
And-
Ms. Perez, so
Yeah.
the Bedford School District is choosing to end that program next year,
Well, that's not true. They have their applications online for next year.
but they're going through the process of ending what you're describing on purpose, because
Well-
basically the parents told the superintendent they want to have full-day kindergarten, real
Okay.
full-day kindergarten.
All right, well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that, there are other school districts that do it too. That doesn't mean that we can't implement it in the beginning of us starting all-day kindergarten for what's best for the kids, and it really should be what's best for the kids and the taxpayer, so.
Sure.
You know, we had readiness back a bit, if you all remember, and that's because all children were not ready to start the first grade at 6 years old.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else?
I have a general question about bonds. It seems to be a big thing, the bond's coming off, this bond's coming off, that bond's coming off. The two bonds that are coming off, how much does that equate to our tax rate? When we put these out, it says it's 28 cents on the tax rate, 10 cents on the tax rate. How much was that on the tax rate when it came out? No ideas?
We have to estimate.
Yeah, we'd have to ask. So if you look at the two, it's 4 cents for what we would be putting on. and
400,
But I'm saying it's,
So if you look at the estimated costs, so we have 0.4 cents for the 226,000. So if you essentially double it, it would end up being, it probably estimating around 8 cents would come off the tax rate.
We're carrying, it's about 62,500 for 1 cent on the tax rate.
Okay.
So you could take that number and times it to get 1 cent. So on 465, you're looking at about 8 cents roughly.
okay, so effectively 8 cents on our tax rate. I'm looking at my bottom line.
Sure,
My tax bill comes in the mail, I can't pay it.
sure.
8 cents on the tax rate,
Yep.
right? This school district thing is approximately, it's 4 cents, 12 cents, and then 12 cents. So it's like, if you add that together, the third year, it's, what, 28?
That's per year, Janet. That 12 cents is
That's
just for
per
that.
year, not cumulative?
Not cumulative,
Okay.
yeah.
We are getting all this increased revenue. So when we get all that increased revenue, does that mean our tax rate is going to go down
Yes.
by that much?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, go to the next slide. It's hard to project everything 5, 4, 6 years out, but what we can kind of see is those long-term savings and the additional revenue. You'll eventually see, you know, much bigger gains by year 7 or 8.
Okay, I guess what my concern is, every time I hear a bond is coming off, I never see my tax bill go down.
This year's different when you look at your tax rate.
Yeah.
This year's different because we're trying to get this passed.
No, you'll see it when we do the operating budget. The
Yeah.
tax rate's going down.
Yeah, the operating budget tells a lot more, Janet, on that case of where the budget is.
I've looked at the operating budget, I know that it's coming down by,
Yeah.
I don't know, it started out like 50 cents, and I don't know what it's at now. The operating budget is coming down, but we're adding all these bonds
Yep.
that, in all these warrant articles that are bringing it right back up. So my bottom line, my tax bill doesn't go down.
It does in this, but when we go through the whole budget, you'll see.
Right. You'll see there is.
So the 10 cents, I think it's $10 and like 31 cents that we're paying
Yeah.
for the school portion of our tax rate right now
Yep.
is going down.
Yes.
To 989 next year,
Right.
with everything.
If everything passes.
Yeah.
If everything passes.
Yep.
If all of the bonds pass, the tax rate for next year is less than it was this year by 51 cents is the estimate. 51 cents per thousand.
Yep,
So this is the first time I'm going to see my tax bill go down?
on the school side.
On the side of the street.
I understand the school, I understand. Yeah, we've got
Yep.
two different sides. I
Yep.
understand that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.
And I think the difference between what this bond does and some of the other bonds, like let's say the water bond on the town side last year, when this bond passes, it actually brings in additional revenue because this bond passes. So money from the state education fund for full-day kindergarten is now going to be added to the school budget, which reduces our tax burden,
As-
our local tax burden.
As well as the midday bus run
Yes.
expense and the
The
district
lease on
office
the-
lease goes towards the
Correct,
bond.
yes.
I understand that.
So just so you know how it got there.
I don't even know how I got here, but on the town side, okay, they said, we're gonna build X amount of buildings. They built all these buildings at north end of town and this, that, and it's gonna increase our revenue. So our taxes are gonna go down. My taxes didn't go down. You built all these buildings, you got all this extra revenue from the taxes of all those properties, but my tax bill didn't go down.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenna.
Tony DeFrancesco, 1 Cheshire Court. So I think there's a differentiator here between the tax rate and the tax bill. The tax bill is a whole different animal than the tax rate. And it's all a product of assessment, okay? So let's be clear that what happens with the tax rate doesn't necessarily mean your tax bill is going to go up or down. It's a product of that number times the dollars per thousand of assessment. It's also important to understand, and I'm saying this to the general public, I know you all know this, the town now is assessing every 2 years to try and keep pace with how much houses are selling for. And so, to be clear, this shows a tax rate going down on the school side. But there is not an equal drop in a tax bill. A tax bill is something totally different. Okay, so I wanted to get that clear the air because we're going to see it again on some other items as well. And what you should hope for is tax stabilization, which I think is a more accurate word than up or down. To be fair also to you folks and all the work that you have done, and it's been substantial, is to say, yes, the school tax rate is going down. What that means, we don't know. The state makes you do the verbiage and the language that you have that says it's going to be, I'll make numbers up, 8 cents, 10 cents, 14 cents. But that's off of 2024 assessment. The state makes you say that. It could be, it's probably going to be less than that because the assessments are going up. And to just put a bow around it, all of the commercial development that's been happening, the tax collections are going to start to increase because of the way the state of New Hampshire charges taxes based on an April 1 completion date, and it's a graduated thing. And so we're going to start to see those incomes come in. They haven't come in yet. You were presented also with something from Ms. Perez, and I just want to clear the air on one thing. Not only is Bedford been advertising for quite some time now that they are stopping that program, it's also important to understand, and for the general public to understand, and people with young children, is that every parent currently and in the future has an option to decide to not enter their child into kindergarten in September of whatever year it is, depending on the age of the child. They always have that option. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you. They've had it, as far as I can remember, since I started being a resident here in 1978. There's no indication that's ever going to change. The parents can decide to not enter their child into kindergarten should they choose that for whatever reason. And I'm sure there's some kind of forms that has to be filled out in a meeting with the superintendent or the assistant superintendent or whatever. But they already have the right to do that. You don't need to legislate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Beth Morocco for Wester Drive. Before I start, thank you 1,000 times over to everybody involved in this process. It's long, it's arduous, it's gonna make you crazy that you have to rewrite everything 1,000 times over, but your dedication is so appreciated. And you work and you collaborate together, even though people have opposing views and different backgrounds. It's amazing what happens when people come together for a shared interest. So thank you, thank you, thank you for representing Londonderry in that way. Again, as a teacher, as a special educator, I just want to remind people that standards change. Once upon a time, you were golden if you had a 3rd grade education. You had everything you needed to know in the world, because they were going to hook you up to that farm plow and you were going to pick potatoes. But this is not that world anymore. And we have a different kind of education service, and we have different projected outcomes. The world looks different, and all the studies, all the longitudinal data says we need to start students younger with all of the pieces that are developmentally appropriate for that age. So when they become older and the standards become more complex, higher level of thinking, these students, these learners, have the foundation that they need so that they can be achievers and not catcher-uppers. It is really, really detrimental to a learner to be behind as a young kid. It throws a cog in the wheel that you cannot remove sometimes, and it is a disservice. So thank you for working so diligently to collaborate and come up with a plan where we can get our kindergarteners full-day care, kindergarten education. We're taking care of their developmental needs because it's play-based learning. This is not 4th grade for kindergartners, and people need to remember that. This is a decisively different program, and I'm so excited because I have seen the benefits of a full-day kindergarten play-based program, and it hurts my body that we don't know that yet. Like, collectively, we don't know what that looks like, but I do, and I'm telling you, this is gonna be amazing. So thank you very much. Let's get all that information out to the community. Please, folks, do your background, do your research, and get that information out to voters, because if they don't know, they might not check the right box, and the next day after the vote is a tough, tough day to find out you got it wrong. So let's do this. This is amazing. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. Because this is a public hearing and I want to make sure that we are accurate about what we are saying. Bedford is having a hearing tonight on a proposal to go to full-day kindergarten funding. They have not gotten rid of full-day. It is a proposal, just like you all are proposing full-day kindergarten for us. So please, if we're going to give information out to the public, let's make sure it's accurate, okay? I am 100% for full-day kindergarten. I'm just offering that you consider a choice of looking at the funding of it in a little different way for the children and for the taxpayer.
Thank you, Christine. Anyone else?
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. I just had a couple of questions, one regarding socialization and the others related to transportation. So pushing the current advantage of where Moose Hill stands now is that entire space is focused on the kindergartners and the LEAP students, and they're kind of secluded in a positive way. If we take full-day kindergarten kids and push them out to all the elementary schools, are they kind of fully integrated and socializing with all the kids up to 5th grade?
No, I mean, what every school kind of does well is that you have your primary grades, your grades 1 and 2, and this would be an extension of that, and you have your 3, 4, and 5, through 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, kind of, in different spots, for that reason.
Similar question related to bus transportation. So if you eliminate the midday bus run, does that integrate the kindergartners in on the same buses as the 1st through 5th graders?
Yep, like most school districts in America, yes.
Okay. Just a bit of a concern because, at least in my own household, I've seen bullying concerns on the school buses. There's varying responses sometimes as to how efficiently those are addressed, and there's a big gap between a kindergartner and a 5th grader, so I think that is a bit of note of concern to the community. The only other question that I had is regarding the cost savings of eliminating the midday bus run. Is there a figure associated with that, either per year or over the life of the contract, of what the district would actually save?
For your first point, when you look at how you can run a bus, kindergartners can be assigned seats that are very far away from 5th graders, and that's obviously something we've been talking about with the bus company. What we came up with, it's on a slide somewhere. It's about $283,000 for the first year we'd implement this. And then, based on our contract, our costs always go up, so we were assuming the savings would go up too. There it is.
Right.
Yep. 283, right?
63.
Top.
No, it's 283 for the buses and 263 for
Yeah.
the district one.
Yeah.
Or district police, rather.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Everybody, Paul Skidlark, 20 Woodbine Drive. I want to thank again, as we've heard before, I want to thank you guys for the work you put in. This is a ton of work, and it's appreciated. It's a great solution, I think, to a problem that's been with us for a long time. Kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, to me is a no-brainer. The data is overwhelming. We need to do this. We should have done this last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. The time is now. We need to get it done. You've got my full support, and I appreciate the work you've done to try to lower costs so that it's more palatable to people, and that's important in this environment, and I think it's great work on your part. The challenge, of course, is making sure good information gets out. I saw the same piece that I think Dan brought up that was written that was inaccurate, and it's important that we flush that out immediately, and I know it's hard to jump on everything because there are multiple town websites out there where stuff gets thrown, people pile on. Before you know it, you're responding to everything. It's very difficult to do that. So I appreciate your good, consistent information as you roll it out. One of the questions I had is, do we know how many kindergarten-age students are in town? I guess how many are we not getting right now because we don't have full-day kindergarten? Or just how many we don't get generally, even if maybe they've opted into a different program? Do we know those answers?
Yeah, I think one of the puzzles for us is what's really driving our lower enrollment. So for many years in a row, what we saw, there was about 220 to 230 kindergartners born in town. Then, by the time they were 5, another 30 to 40 kids moved in. So we tended to have 260, 270 kids in town. But we lost about 30 or 40 more who wanted full-day kindergarten and went somewhere else. So by the time we hit 3rd grade, there was about 300. And we saw that for a while. Right now, we're seeing numbers below 220. So I don't know if that's a demographic thing, because I think I've been reading a lot around how birth rates have just dropped since 2007, 2008, since the Great Recession. And I don't know how much of it is people are just like, well, you don't have full-day kindergarten, I'm going to go start somewhere else, and maybe I'm happy and I stay there. I think one of the telling signs where I think it's just lower demographics and all is, again, what we would normally see from K to 1 in prior years is 30 to 40 new kids would show up. Last year, only 15 showed up. So it might just be smaller demographics, and it might just be this combination of choice where maybe I started a private school, and then I love that private school because they had full-day kindergarten, and I'm not going to come back. It's still a puzzle for us, and I think if we put full-day kindergarten in place, we'll have a better answer of what's behind it.
Yeah, Dan, I don't even know if you'd have this information, if you have the town demographical information, it would tell you exactly how many kindergarten-age kids there are in town, or do you have it?
Yeah.
Do we know those numbers?
We can track the birth rate, but then I don't know the private kids that are not showing up yet, no.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you indicate, I think that oftentimes I would imagine that someone that doesn't see that full-day kindergarten's an option, and they opt for some place that does, a private school, whatever it might be, that they might stay there. They may be more apt to just stay there, and they're not part of the public school curriculum.
Sure.
And that's certainly a concern. So I think the benefits of full-day kindergarten, again, are overwhelming, including hopefully getting more people back into the public education system.
Yeah.
And again, I think you guys are doing great work here, and I appreciate what's being done. There will be other opportunities for public comment, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, every article.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment, and I'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you.
Bob, I just had a question about something that was said, and I was waiting until public comment was over. Is that okay now?
Yeah, we're going to go into deliberations,
Okay,
so
perfect.
it's on this
Thank you.
article, Amanda, regarding this article,
Perfect.
correct? Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go right into deliberations on the barn article, and I'll start with the board here, and Borgia.
I have what I think is a rhetorical question, but hypothetically, if if someone just didn't register their kid for kindergarten at all, and then they, are essentially a first grade age student, that student would go to what grade?
First grade.
First grade. So essentially, if we're not getting those kids in kindergarten, they're going to go to the grade of their birth year without any.
Potentially.
Okay.
That's
Because that's been my experience, but I didn't know if that was a state thing or.
In theory, that can happen in any community, but I think because we have a half-day program, it makes it worse.
Okay, because that's been my experience where I've had kids show up in first grade with nothing.
Yep.
It's rare, but I just wanted to make sure that I was not speaking out of turn. Okay, thank you.
Good, Amanda?
Yep.
Sarah, anything?
No questions.
No, I think we've covered this.
Yeah. Kevin?
I feel comfortable with covered it.
And I just kind of wanted to address what Ms. Perez gave us. We're basically trying to get this bond passed to have the space. I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversation. I'd like the board to just talk about this when we're working with the superintendent and staff and we put our full-day program together, and just make sure we cover all these bases and have some good dialogue on it moving forward, okay? Everybody fine with that? So, seeing no questions, I'll look for a motion to move the bond article to the deliberative session, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you. All right. Moving on.
Are you guys going to vote whether you support it or not?
Yeah, I'll do that one now, and then we'll do them
Okay,
as we
okay,
go.
sure.
So let's go just back to that quick. Who would like to make the motion at the deliberative session on Article 2?
I can do that.
Amanda? And who would like to second it?
Second.
Sarah? And this one here, I'd like to present, if that's okay with everybody? Okay, all right, so I'll present.
Do they?
Okay,
You have-
and let's,
You have to let us know whether you support it or not.
yeah,
too.
that's what I was
Okay,
going to do
okay,
next.
Yep.
And then I'll look for, I'm looking for a vote of us, of the school board on the motion to approve by the school board, a yes or no. So I'd look for a motion to, if you're a yes or no, to the affirmative first, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
Second by Kevin, or actually, let me back up on that. I'll look for yes votes or no votes on this for support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you. A little confused there, sorry about that. And the Budget Committee's going to do it at a later date, right, and get back to us?
Next Tuesday, the 21st.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Moving on, we're going to open the public hearing on the operating budget and all other warrants. I'll look for a motion to open the public hearing on the operating budget as well as the warrants, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Tim. I'll ask for a roll call vote to open the public hearing, please, starting left to right.
Aye, Kevin Gray.
Aye, Tim Porter.
Aye, Bob Slater.
Aye, Sarah Laughlin.
Aye, Amanda Butcher.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is open, and we will start with Article 3.
Sure. So, Article 3 is the operating budget. I have a very quick presentation to go over the major movements of it. We spent about 5 meetings going over all these details, so we can definitely dig up the budget book if there's burning questions. But if you go to the next slide, Jason. To kind of understand where we're at, the operating budget, what's being proposed right now is $89,875,000. It's actually about $33,000 below what the voters approved last year. I'll call it level funded. It's pretty close percentage-wise. And it's also about $123,000 below the default budget. And I'll kind of explain the major movement. And again, I think there were some favorable conditions, there were some tough choices, but in the end, we're trying to fund our academic program, our co-curricular program, and also make room for these important things like the bond we just talked about and the collective bargaining contracts that are coming up too. So go to the next slide. Here's the tax rate figures, something we were talking about earlier. The tax rate figure is overall down. As Tony said, that's a lot driven by valuation. So it's down by about 93 cents or about 9%, and it's driven by having fairly similar costs from last year, but also that valuation went up as well. And then the default budget's a little bit higher, so 2 cents higher on the tax rate, and then not as small of a decrease. But if you go to the next slide, here's how we got to the major changes. So in some respects, there's favorable conditions. So when we hired new staff for this year compared to 2 years ago, they're about $400,000 cheaper, in terms of their costs. There was a renovation bond we no longer need to pay for that we're retiring, so that saved us about another $475,000. And then, the really big investment we made last year in our academic program was for this new literacy program. That was a one-time cost. There are ongoing costs that are now in the elementary school budget, but that big one-time cost we're able to not have to reproduce again. So those were costs coming down. But we did see some significant costs in other parts of our budget. Our out-of-district placement for students that are required by law to be taught, we, in the end, were not successful, even in some of our excellent self-contained programs that were reviewed by a national organization last year. We were still not successful in kind of keeping everyone in the building. That does happen. That's one of the journeys of being a public school. You do your best, and you want to have everyone in the community, but ultimately we weren't successful, and that's a joint agreement between the families and the school district. Those costs were up by $1.2 million. If you've been watching budgets for years, you'll know that out-of-district placement number can go up and down. There can be big swings, and this year, unfortunately, we saw a very big swing. Even though we had some savings and some increased costs, we did make some very targeted investments. We put a lot of effort into the program of studies at the high school, and we're working in a couple different areas. So Rick and his team have really been working on building out our advanced placement classes. They've done tremendous work. We were able to set aside about $38,000 to fund numerous classrooms and numerous advanced classes, and we're very happy about that. And in earlier board presentations, we talked about the big changes we've seen in the numbers there too, which is wonderful. Another area we're investing in, which I think we're equally excited about, is career-connected learning. That's probably a new term I'll use instead of career and technical education. So we want to make sure that if there are kids that are heading towards the workforce right after high school or near after high school, we're coming up with good plans for them and good experiences. So what we're investing in is a fire science class in this building to kind of help them on that path if they're interested, and a really great partnership right across the way with the fire department. And we're investing in someone that can keep an eye on extended learning opportunities. We're at an exciting point where we're going to start building out our ability for our students to interact with all those Fortune 500 companies near the airport, local businesses, and really getting our kids ready for the working world and seeing that experience. There's a lot of work we can do there, and we're excited about it. We also made a $23,000 investment to make sure we can have an assistant athletic director at the middle school. That was big. You know, we're very proud of our academic program. We're very proud of the connection between co-curricular. Just how big our middle school and high school athletic programs are is gigantic, let alone the space. So to make sure we have proper supervision and a good connection with staff in the building, we needed to add this position, and we think this is a great investment to kind of strengthen that connection at the middle school. There's also about $19,000 in smaller curriculum things that Jason was working on we can go into. Most of them were for district-wide things. Some of them were for typing and some other areas. We're also making targeted investments, about $18,000 in middle school and high school athletic stipends, some for our unified programs, some for stipends that were just out of whack with the general ecosystem there, and we wanted to clean it up. And then another big investment for us is we're bringing a social worker to work with our 6 through 12 students. You know, there are a lot of kids who struggle in school, and we need to do a better job kind of connecting them to resources within the building and connecting their families to resources in the community. The instability we see in homes comes into our buildings, and I think we need this resource to kind of help families adjust to some of their struggles so that their kids are more successful in school. Most school districts of our size have a social worker, and we're excited to kind of bring this to our students and our families. Beyond all those investments, there were tough choices made too. We did reduce about $410,000 in staff. There were 2 special ed teachers we reduced in this budget, and that's district-wide. Kim and her team are going to kind of look at the needs over the spring and kind of figure out if we need to shift things around. But based on lower enrollment and based on need, we could absorb them. There's no one losing their job in this process. Similarly, we also reduced 2 staff at the high school. You know, from looking at the program of studies, Rick and Dr. Susi and I, you know, made sure that the program of studies and all the advanced classes, all the career-connected learning, all the classes that are in there can still be offered. We can do that. And we're basically responding to lower enrollment, but still offering the same program, which we're proud of. And then I also reduced a staff member at the district office, and that was kind of the net savings, about $410,000. Those are all the major changes. You have 300 pages of other changes and other things we could always answer questions on when it comes to the details of the budget. If you go to the next slide. Again, enrollment drives a lot of our decision making. We're projecting about 61 less kids from what we have right now. Most of that is driven by a smaller group of kids most likely coming in than a group of kids that we are graduating. But you know, we look at enrollment closely, and we make kind of our informed decisions, and that's the bigger picture of enrollment within the district. Go to the next slide. I think over the last 2 years, we've made a lot of tough decisions. Last year, we responded to lower enrollment. This year, we responded to lower enrollment. You know, so if you look at it over a 2-year period, and these are not easy decisions. You know, we've reduced 14 staff members for about $1.1 million. Those are tough choices, but at the same time, we're making sure we can offer the same academic program, offer the same co-curricular program, and make sure our kids still benefit. It's not easy to do. It takes lots of hard work to get there, but I think we're doing a good job responding to lower enrollment, making sure we're providing the same great product to our families, but also respond to the taxpayers too. Go to the next slide. And that's Article 3 in a nutshell. I think Bob wanted to read it, and then we can go into the questions.
Article 3, shall the voters, general fund operating budget. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 not including appropriations by special warrant articles or separate warrant articles, one of the following amounts for the purposes set forth in the budget posted with the warrant. Vote for only one. A, $89,116,875. This is school board budget as amended. Estimated tax impact, $9.47. Or B, $89,240,249 default budget. Estimated tax impact, $9.49. Just a note here, warrant article operating budget does not include appropriations proposed under any other article in this warrant. All right. I will open the floor to the public. Any questions?
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. Can we shift to the slide, the multicolored slide that says major changes in the operating budget?
This one, or?
I just had a couple questions about some of the figures that are up here. How did we comprise the number, the $414K in staff turnover savings? Is that like less HR time focused on retention, or how was that figure contrived?
No, so what happens every year in the business office is you take all your staff, you load them in, you figure out what their costs are, and we're comparing it to the prior year. So you had people that retired, they were probably at a high salary rate, with new people that came in that might be lower. So the net is that number right there.
Thank you. And I had a question about the $170K regarding the one-time literacy program costs. I was to understand that we were fielding a couple of different literacy programs at the elementary school level as like a trial period, and then eventually we're going to settle on one. So is there an upcoming, in the next year or two, future investment again into the elementary literacy programs, or where do we stand on that?
Yep, that already happened.
Okay.
Nicole and Jason, you want to jump in there? Or? Yeah.
So yeah, we did pilot 2 programs. At the end, through our district literacy committee, we decided on CKLA as our program, and that'll be our program moving forward. So there'll be no changes in investing in a new program.
Excellent, excellent. I think I have one more. Just bear with me a moment. I have a question. I don't mean to be contentious in that regard. Is there a reason that for proposed staffing cuts that we would cut special education staff as opposed to, say, another staff member at the district office?
I think we're trying to respond to lower enrollment. I mean, again, we've seen generally lower enrollment. We're trying to match it. I don't have other staff to cut at the district office.
Is the lower FTEs and special related to the fact that we're placing more students out of district? Does that drive some of that lower need as well?
No, I mean, because what you'll see is higher need students tend to have more staffing in general, but it's more just lower enrollment overall globally.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Tony DeFrancesco, 1 Cheshire Court. So I want to react to 2 things. One, what a sad state we're in that the guidance counselors now can't handle things because they're so complicated and so out of control that we need to hire a social worker. I think we're probably 2 years too late, several years too late in hiring that position. But I think just in general, it's kind of a sad thing that we need to do that to fully service the young people that are in any town, in every town, everywhere. I think it's really sad. I would like to react also to something that happened at a previous meeting, and the chairman of the budget committee was incredulous, looking out into the crowd, saying, we have almost a $90 million budget and no one's here, what's going on? I wasn't really offended by that because I was there, but nobody was there, but that's okay. But I think that in the analysis, one person's analysis, that would be me, is that the report card that you had last March, in working together for all these hours a year ago, in presenting a fair and equitable budget, the taxpayers responded in a favorable way. Not only that, but they also voted, and I've said this, if I've said it once, I've said it dozens of times. It's actually the taxpayer voter that increased the tax rate to what it is today. And they did that by voting almost every warrant article in. I did say almost. And by the way, they did it on both tickets, both the town side across the street and here. What that tells me, as the person who decided to do that analysis, and you've heard this before, is that the people in town are generally satisfied with what you all are doing. Not only that, but they're willing to pay for what you're proposing. And not only that, they're willing to increase the budget to get more services for their children. And I said the same thing to the town council. I've said it several times on both sides. It needs to be said as many times as possible. You all work very hard, all these hours away from your families, to present what some people would think is a fair and equitable budget. And not only that, but the taxpayers, a year ago, we'll see what happens this time, voted to increase the tax rate to what it currently is. So congratulations to that. And Mr. Chair, there will be more people here. You've seen it. You've been around long enough. And Mr. Chair, you also have seen some tumultuous times as well where it wasn't as favorable and people weren't as happy. But for the most part, there's nobody here because it's fair and equitable, and they're willing to pay for it. They like it. They enjoy being here. They want to be Londonderry residents. They're happy being Londonderry residents. They're proud to be Londonderry residents. That's not said enough. And if people have complaints, they shouldn't come to you, and they shouldn't come to the town council. What they should do is knock on their neighbors' doors and say, hey, how come you increased my tax rate? Because that's who did it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else?
Beth Marco, having trouble today. Beth Morocco, 4 Westwood Drive. I'll keep it short, but we invest in our children because smartly it invests in our future. You want the people who are going to put your IVs in to be properly educated. We need to invest in these learners. You've done an amazing job having such a streamlined budget. I've worked in other districts, and it's like kind of a mess. You've done an amazing job coming off of a very tumultuous pandemic. Amazing work. We just got to get the voters to like collaborate also and talk to each other and run the numbers and just look at the amazing work you've done and that you projected will come next through these ideas. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I just have a general comment. I was watching the meeting from home when there was one person here. I've watched every single meeting from home. Is there any way we know how many people are watching from home? I know when they have the other things going on, they can tell how many people are watching from home.
He knows.
So there are 63 people watching from home.
Great.
So we do have some people who are watching.
Unless they're watching on the cable access channel.
True.
Oh,
Yeah,
and the
we have the
cable
other
access channel. Okay. My other comment was, we just had an election, okay? There were lines for hours and hours wrapping around. Why don't we have that at our election? We have how much, over $89 million? Get out there and vote. I want to see half the lines that I saw at the last election.
Exactly.
A quarter of them, because I think there's like 3% of the people in this town that vote on this stuff. You don't want your taxes to go up, vote.
Thank
If
you,
I
Janet.
recall, in the last election that we had in March of 2024, a little over 4,000 people showed up to vote. That was it.
Yep.
Yep. Anyone else?
And that was a big year, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good turnout.
That was a good turnout. We were psyched about that.
Paul Sklar, 20 Woodbine Drive. I just have a couple of questions. On the revenue side of things, and maybe I've missed it along the course of these discussions, but how are we trending from the state contribution side of things? What are we looking at for the state contribution to public education in Londonderry? And what do those trend lines look like?
So if you look at the budget hearing packet,
Yep.
you can look on page 7, and it will show you what we've gotten and what we're budgeting for. So this year, we've been fortunate that what we planned for last fall, it's been a little bit more, but if you hear what's coming out of the state, we're estimating, it sounds like it could be a little lower next year, but
Well, and the reason I bring it up is exactly for that reason. We're looking at real austerity out of the State House coming up. The new governor, Ayotte, has said that. Edelblut has said that. There's going to be less revenue, a lot less revenue, coming to local cities and towns. To the question of why don't you see your taxes go down, why don't you see your property taxes go down specifically, it's because we don't have the revenues coming in from other sources. So the burden is completely on, or mostly on, local residents that own property in town. So that's the issue. What I see today, and I don't agree with Christine Perez about pretty much anything, but I appreciate that she's here today. I see no other state reps. I don't see Sherm Packard, who's our Speaker of the House. I don't see Wayne McDonald. I don't see Julia Soti. I don't see Tom Dolan. I don't see Doug Thomas. I don't see any of those people show up at any of these meetings, ever. Do they reach out to anybody here? Dan, have they spoken to you? Bob?
I have spoken to some
You've
on other,
spoken.
on
Have
other
they
issues. yeah.
spoken publicly? Have they been involved in any of these discussions?
No, we've had conversations about funding through the state
Okay.
with all our state reps.
But not one of them, other than Christine, who shows up at these meetings. I know she does, because I see her. And again, I don't agree with her about much of anything, but she's here, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate her perspective. Hey, Pat, do you hear from any of these people at all?
No.
Any of our state reps? Sharon Carson, who's now going to be the Senate president.
No.
Again, we're looking at reduced revenues coming in, okay? Just yesterday, the local Republican Party in Londonderry made the statement that they're looking to push toward universal vouchers throughout the state. So anybody of any income level is going to get a voucher. That's a lot of money that'll be going to private schools that won't be coming to the public education areas. That's us. That affects us. That's going to affect your property taxes, okay? These buildings still need to be maintained. We still need to pay our teachers. We need to pay our taxes. We need to pay our insurance. We need to pay for heat. All of these things cost money. And with less revenue, you have less ability to do that. And you ought to be asking every one of your state legislators, they ought to be here. They ought to be here. And ask them if they're supporting that legislation, moving forward to universal vouchers throughout, and all the other mandates that they're now going to be presenting that are mostly kind of culture warrior type mandates that need to be paid for, need to be litigated, discussed. You're going to have more meetings. They're going to add to your burden here as educators. They should be asked those questions. Maybe Christine can enlighten us a little bit tonight, but the rest of them ought to be here, and it's shameful that they're not, quite frankly. Because this is a reality that's upon us right now, and there's no more money coming. And that burden's going to fall on all of us, and the people that should take the blame are the people at the State House right now that aren't here.
Paul, to that point, before you sit down,
Yeah.
I just want to let you know, the board and the superintendent are actively meeting with state reps to discuss concerns about the future. We're trying to do the right things in our buildings for our students, for our taxpayers. as it shows this year in our budgeting and what we put forward for the bond. I've addressed all our state reps. I have met with Frank Edelblut today to discuss that. We've got a meeting with Sharon Carson next week with the governor. So we are throwing out ideas. We're showing them our model, what we do, you know, diligently, working hard to show a good business model, and that our education is on the rise through the classrooms. We have a tremendous amount of work still to do, but it does take a certain amount of funding to make sure that happens. We are cognizant of the taxpayers. We listen to them, as it showed from last year to this year. But our business model, and we're sharing that with every representative. We've already met with Chris Pappas, laid it out for him. We got a meeting with Gene Shaheen, different board members and that. So we are expressing what we've done, what our plans are, to show them how diligently public education is for our students, and that we can't do it all through just our local taxpayers. So we are trying to share our plan that maybe it'll be a good thing for the state level, what we've done here in Londonderry. And that. So we do have those concerns. They are very open for us meeting with them, and have been working with us to get meetings as pronto as we can, because we know they're in the middle of the budget, and we're sharing some ideas business-wise and educationally-wise that we're trying to change here. And I don't know of many other school districts that are taking that effort, but this board and the superintendent are trying to do what we can for our local taxpayers. So appreciate it.
And Bob, I appreciate that. I know you do that. I know you've been very active in that regard for a number of years now. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And you mentioned the federal level. The federal level is going to kind of rain down a lot of austerity as well. They don't have a lot of support. There's not a lot of support at the federal level with the incoming administration, or certainly in the current state level for public education generally. It's just going to get harder.
Yeah. Well.
And we just have to be prepared for that.
Yep.
As a group, because, and we need to hold the people that need to be held responsible for that, hold them responsible for that, because we haven't done that. We quite frankly haven't done that. We've reelected these people and reelected them and reelected them. We're looking at state revenues on the, I think just on the business profit tax, down $83 million from what they thought it was going to be, just in the last 6 months, $83 million. And it's going down. They just eliminated another tax. It's gone. That's the dividends tax. They looked at it as an income tax. They want to get rid of it. That's now gone. These are all these revenue sources that are just going away.
Yeah.
And you don't get those back once they're gone.
No, and to that point, that's what concerns this school board and the superintendent.
Right.
And I can tell you, the representative's been very open to what we're saying. We're hoping it keeps moving it at the federal level.
Yep.
I know things are going to change.
Well, I hope it
drastically,
resonates.
but that's
I
okay.
don't think it will. I hope it does, Bob, and I hope you
We're
keep.
not going away.
I
We're
know.
going to keep driving,
Yeah.
and we're going to keep coming up with ideas,
I
and we're
appreciate
going to
it.
keep driving public education where it can be affordable for our taxpayers
Gotcha.
in that, so
I'm
we
supportive
appreciate
of
it.
the budget as well, and I appreciate the work there, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
2 seconds as a state rep. I have worked with Bob to get information to him. I went to a special conference and specifically went to about education funding and shared that with the board and shared the information of who to contact at the board to get information. As far as the EFAs, I am pro EFAs. I believe that not one fits all for children. I am not pro making it universal for everyone at this point, because it's just not the time to do that. And I hear my constituents saying it is not the time financially to do that. So that even though I am for them, I'm not for changing the level of funding at this point. As far as public education, I don't think you have any of your state reps, including me, that are not pro-public education, or I wouldn't be funneling things to the school board. And if things are misinterpreted, I'm going to go over a warrant article that I'm putting in tonight. It is not against public education. It is not against funding. It is a tool if you need it in the future, but we can go to that later.
Sure. Thank you, Christine. Anyone else?
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. I just had a couple questions regarding the social worker staff member. Are they going to be an organic staff member of the Londonderry School District, or is that someone contracted out from somewhere like Amaskik Health or one of those services?
It'd be an employee of the school district.
If they are a social worker ranging from 6 to 12, is there a projection as to how much time they may spend at the middle school versus the high school?
That's a good question, and we haven't figured out the exact details yet.
And the only other question that I had, any of those services billable to insurance or like funded by Medicaid to schools or anything like that to bring the social worker into the district?
Potentially, but that's a better question for Kim, but I don't even know if she knows the answer. I mean, maybe. Sorry. You say yes or no.
It would only be reimbursable through the Medicaid to School Act if the social worker was doing any work that was prescribed in IEP or 504. Right now, we are not seeking reimbursement for students that do not have that in a prescribed written plan.
So they're just part of the like general support package like the other counselors and so on?
Correct. The state is reauthorizing and redoing how they are billing Medicaid to schools through the Act, and we're waiting to see how that is done and working with the other school districts. And when we get that information, there may be more channels for more reimbursement, but right now we don't have all that information.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
I apologize, another question. Will parental permission to meet with the social worker have to be given?
No, they would be a staff member just like our counselors are.
You might want to consider. Right now, there is a concern. Maine is having a horrible problem. We have 4 clinics in schools now in New Hampshire. There is a big concern about clinics coming into the school districts and children being seen without parental permission. If they give a blanket, my kid has, can be seen for medical. Unfortunately, we have clinics in the state and huge in other states, and they are in Maine with huge lawsuits where children are being treated with birth control, with lots of stuff that parents are not aware of. You need to have permission to give an aspirin to a child. I really think social work is could be considered a mental health, medical, however you want to say it, treatment. So I really think, I understand bringing a social worker into the school system, but I can tell you quite honestly, if I was a parent, I would not want my child to be meeting with a social worker without my knowledge and my permission.
So again, we have a staff that's very collaborative with our parents.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We have a staff that's very collaborative with our parents. That when students have bigger needs, we're always collaborating with those parents. So what you're describing is not what we're proposing.
Okay, but collaborating and permission for treatment are
We
two
agree on
different
permission.
things. Huh?
We agree on permission.
Are you saying you agree that the parent should have permission for the child to be seen by a social
I think we
worker?
work together well with families, getting their permission to work with their kids.
That's not answering my question. I'm saying
The best
written
answer I
permission for your child to see the social worker. Or can a child be just sent to the social worker by a staff member? There's a big difference.
Again, you're describing something that we're not proposing.
So who will have the child go to the social worker? Who has the child, refers the child to the social worker?
There could be a whole number of reasons that they get there.
No, and I didn't ask for reasons. I said who.
Our staff.
I really feel that parental notification should be a requirement and parental permission should be a requirement. There's a big difference between a teacher teaching and a social worker treating.
Thank you.
I'll just also say, on a social worker standpoint, there's various roles that they do within the school, whether it be truancy, attendance, CHINS petitions, just food, kids needing clothes, just general like that, whether it be a parent recommendation to the social worker or a staff member. A staff member may see a kid not eating, not having money. So just being that liaison for parents who don't know how to reach out to or who is something we definitely need in this district and something we've been lacking as a social worker in general.
Yeah, I would say I would join in Christine's concerns outside of what you're describing, Sarah. Those are obviously services that I would welcome them just having at the ready. If it does rise to something in the neighborhood of therapy one-on-one for a kid, the parent should in my opinion, the parent should absolutely be signing off on that before it ever occurs.
But that's not a social worker's role. So.
This is why I'm
I
saying
don't-
delineating these
Yeah.
duties is important to lay out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Beth Mareko, 4 Worcester Drive. I just wanted to clarify, do parents need to get permission for their child to see the school nurse? Probably not. Is it fair to say that they can have contact with the cafeteria staff?
Well, this gets to what I was just saying about
Right.
delineating the
A
roles
social
of the
worker, right, has a defined role. They're not a school psychologist, in the sense of diagnosing students. They're performing a service that is outlined. They have clear duties, and it may simply be that they're passing students in the hallway, and they note an interaction, and they help students work through it. I think we sometimes over-dramatize, and we pathologize, but as a teacher, your duty, or anybody that works with students, your duty is to help them get through their school day successfully. And I think we want to be open to the fact that there are a lot of roles that make that happen, and so sometimes our cafeteria workers are preparing extra bags of food to go home with students that have food insecurities. And we applaud that. We shouldn't look with trepidation and conspiracy around a staff person who is hired to help a student navigate anxiety, because I have anxiety, I'm a human, and that's a human emotion. It is a core human emotion, and students exhibit that in different ways. And so one student might look very angry, and maybe they are just anxious. And if a personnel person helps them to say, oh gosh, do you need 5 minutes over here doing this activity? Maybe you can help, direct the first graders through the hallway. Like maybe just giving them a role to kind of stop and de-escalate would help them so that they don't have a bigger problem. A social worker helps kind of navigate those pieces, so we're acting proactively instead of reactively. And that is why the district is introducing this role into our district. We must start taking a proactive step. We've got to stop with the conspiracy nonsense. It's not reality, and we really have to focus on the reality of what our students are dealing with, because we need to help them get through this stage so they can move on to the learning. Thanks.
Thank you.
Social workers help individuals, families, and communities improve their quality of life through counseling, number one, advocacy, and connecting them with resources. They address various issues such as poverty, discrimination, mental health, and family conflicts. They are a treating person. Parents should have permission. Yes, you can go to the school nurse, but you can go to, if something's wrong, the school nurse has to call your family. If you want an aspirin, you need permission. If they're giving you a pill, they need the doctor's order. Social workers are not just somebody to deal with anxiety, and anxiety, acute anxiety, is a medical and mental health diagnosis. Consider it before it's a problem.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brian McCauley, Buckthorn Street. I wasn't going to come, but then I decided as I was watching at home, I should come and voice my opinion here. Even though I'm at the 9th hour, I'm probably too late for some of this. But on one of the slides, I think, and I talked to Kim on this, so on one of the slides, I think you're proposing a reduction in special education by 2 FTEs, and I think there's also hidden in the other slides that it's a reduction of another 1 at the high school to help out with the outsourcing above. So if I understand it properly, there'll be a 3-person reduction at the high school for special ed support. So I'm very concerned, like I have a child that's currently under an IEP, that we currently don't have a signed IEP to cover that support. So I'm just kind of concerned that, and we're working through Kim, so I'm not coming here to complain about that. We're still working through it. We're going through our normal process. But looking forward, I'm concerned by dropping that heads, that support won't be there for either my son or some other people coming through, even with an enrollment going down. So.
Yeah, so no, it's a good question.
Here's a slide.
The best way to explain it is the reductions in special education are actually K to 12. So it's not just the high school.
Okay. So that's the 2 there, but I think, so at the high school, what's the FTEs at the high, it says
District office.
2 FTEs in special ed, okay, so
Yep.
that's the overall.
Yeah.
And then 2 at the high school, and that's
That's for special, regular education.
general
I understand.
education, yeah.
So at the high school though, I think in the detailed presentation, I think it's 1 at the high school plus the person helping out, plus a second one going outsourced, or
Yeah.
helping with the people, right?
Yeah, so we'll have to go back to, the personnel, almost like last month, but basically, I mean, Kim probably wants to correct me if I get it wrong, but we'll see. So we are shifting a position to be able to make the social worker.
Yep.
And then there is someone who is going to be taking on our charter school placements at the
So
high
there's
school.
2 reductions.
So shifting around, shifting of needs, yep.
But my son, for an example, now has 2 less people that are able to help him with those 2, because you're shifting those resources
Yep.
to that other place. And then you're gonna have another reduction of, which will be 3, right?
No, just the 2.
Okay, just the 2?
Yep, but again, kind of looking at the overall ratios, looking at the level of needs, we have the room to kind of do that and also, shift things around generally. And the way I explained it to staff when I got the staff meetings is, we'll kind of use the spring to figure out where we might move people around.
Okay.
I think I got it correct.
Okay,
Yes,
I just
okay.
want to make
Yep,
sure. Mainly,
sure.
I know I'm not going to solve the issue because
Sure.
I don't think, I'm at the 9th hour, you're not going to add these heads back into the budget at this point, right? And even if I did ask you to do it at deliberative, it's a bottom line budget, you're still going to do what you're going to do, right? So I understand that piece. But my concern, just voicing the concern,
Sure.
is publicly, is that currently this level of support's not there today. And I think in the future, it's probably not going to be there, because if you can't support it today, you're not going to support it tomorrow. Because I don't think the decline in special ed, I don't know the facts, are probably not significant enough of 2 FTEs.
And you said you're working with Kim?
I'm working with Kim on this, but
So if
as
you-
I sit at home, I'm like, if you see something, say something,
Yeah,
right?
and
And that's all I'm doing.
The deliberative meeting is for the people.
Yeah.
So things can be done. So I would suggest meeting with Kim in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Make sure you're comfortable, and if you need to do something, sir, it's your right.
Yeah.
So make
But at
sure
the-
you're comfortable.
But at the end of the day, it's a bottom line budget. So even if I voice something as N equals 1 and get the people on the deliberative to go with me, Dan can, at the end of the day, we learned this 10 years ago or whatever, that's a
Yeah.
bottom line budget. So he can do whatever he wants.
Sure, I mean, but I think if there's a movement at deliberative to put 1 more FTE, we would do our best to honor it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
getting at.
yeah.
So I would sit down with Kim and make sure and see what they're moving for personnel and just feel comfortable with that. And then make your decision for the deliberative.
Okay.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I think, Brian, what you're saying is, you're working out your own child situation, but in terms of the
I'm on
greater
it,
good, what's
but I'm-
available. And something that I just want to mention, and I'm going to save my social worker suggestion and comment and collaboration issue for the appropriate time. But I think when we look at supporting kids, in my own professional career, I'm finding that there are cognitive supports in terms of special needs, and there are also more and more kids who aren't learning or aren't succeeding because there are barriers in their way, whether they're, behavioral barriers or all of these things. So I think what we're looking at doing by adding that person is there are different types of support needed for different kids, and some kids aren't identified, and some kids, don't access the curriculum because of their behavior and then need an IEP, right? But maybe cognitively, they wouldn't have needed the IEP if they had the appropriate supports in place. And I think we're also targeting that with the multi-tiered systems of support. So, kids who have behavioral needs and challenges, they're not needing to get identified with an IEP because we have these supports in place and access to different types of people, whether they're behavior specialists or, this, RTI model for behavior. We're able to now kind of realize we need these supports in different areas to prevent kids from needing a tier 3 level of support, which an IEP would offer. So what I have kind of heard in terms of meetings with that tier 1 support, the behavioral support for all, and then things like social workers is maybe the support will still be there, but it will be streamlined in different avenues to best support the needs of the student population. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and to kind of layer that on, happy to work with you and Kim too. All those decisions in that far right-hand column are really tough decisions. But
I agree.
but if I were to know that our services would be degraded, I would say that. We are confident, based on the staff we have now, the needs we have now, we could absorb them. But there could be a time, whether it's decreased state aid or whatever, if we are further reducing and we can't produce the academic program we have right now, we will let people know with those reductions, or if there's a reduction in services to some capacity. What we're saying is we can still provide the same thing. I understand your concern. It's a real concern. We have it too.
Yeah.
But we've gone through the exercise to kind of make sure we can provide the same level of services, the same level of needs, and kind of do what Amanda was describing too.
Okay. Yeah. And like everything else, it's perception versus reality.
Yeah.
So I understand
Yeah.
there's a perception, but reality, what I'm seeing
Sure.
is not what you're perceiving, right?
Sure.
So, and then the only other thing, and I kind of was talking with Kim on this on a separate subject, but around extended learning opportunities, I see which is great, you're offering one at the fire department for, I'm going to call it it's probably open to anybody, but it's for the regular population. We might want to look at, is there opportunities for the special ed side? Is there learning opportunities for those kids that when they do age out, that they can get into the normal working life? And see
So
what their
Kim and her team have done a ton of stuff for
Yeah, and I've
kids
been
up to
talking-
age 22 recently too. But the ELOs in general are describing what you're saying. They could be as wide-ranging for anything. So we're going to get there.
So we want to keep working on that. too,
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the budget? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board and look for a motion to move the general fund operating budget for 2025, 2026 to the deliberative meeting, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And while we're here, who would like to make the motion at the meeting?
I'll motion.
Who's that? Cap? And second?
I can second.
Tim. Dan will present. And then I will look for a vote by the school board. All those in favor of supporting this motion, this budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay. Article 4. Londonderry Education Association, LEA Bargaining Agreement. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Londonderry School District and the Londonderry Education Association, LEA, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,920,879 for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Such sum representing the additional cost items attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits over those paid at current staffing levels in the prior fiscal year. The agreement calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at current staffing levels over those paid in the prior fiscal year. Fiscal year 2025-2026, estimated cost $1,920,879, estimated tax impact 27 cents. FY 2026-27, estimated cost $1,682,340, estimated tax impact 24 cents. FY 2027-2028, $1,647,733, with a tax impact of 23 cents.
Yep, if you go to the next slide, Jason. Just a couple big bullet points, and we're happy to answer any questions, but I'm really thankful for how the school board approached the collective bargaining agreements with both our teachers and allied health. We have great staff, and they made an investment in them. So this collective bargaining agreement keeps the healthcare plans that they currently have for the next 3 years. It maintains the investment in the salaries for our veteran staff and kind of acknowledges their leadership in our buildings right now and how they're the cultural and tone centers of the building. One of the biggest things we're trying to solve is we knew regionally our starting pay was below nearly all of our competitors, and we were starting to lose out, and we don't want to do that. We want to be a district that brings in new staff, so we raised the starting pay so that we jumped over a lot of school districts, and we're now very competitive, and I think that's going to help us as staff turnover for future years. And then we updated a lot of language around personal leaves, the evaluation model we've just gone through, increase the sick day bonuses, and a few other items here and there. But most things collective bargaining contract is about salaries and benefits, and that's the summary of it. And you'll see the same approach for the allied health, which are an entirely separate group, which we'll get to next. But that's the big picture. I don't know if you wanted to layer anything else on it.
Yeah, I would just hit on what we knew we were at a disadvantage on the starting pay as a teacher. Several community members were concerned with that too, being able to pay our teachers. So we were able to bring that point to a competitive market where we compete with the surrounding towns and schools of our size. To your point, we did lose some good candidates due to pay over the last school year, and I think this puts us in a good spot, and it works with our veteran teachers to make sure they're compensated, but we're able to work the top end as well. So overall, it was a long negotiation with a lot of detail, but I think we got to a good point for future teachers coming to Londonderry. So that's how I'll end. And I will open it up to the floor if anyone would like to speak to this. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board, and let's do each one as we go so we can just keep that in. I will look for a motion to move Article 4, Londonderry Education Association Bargaining Agreement to the deliberative session, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And who would like to make the motion at the deliberative, please?
I can do that.
Amanda. Second?
I'll second.
Sarah? Kevin, would you like to present? You want to present it?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And for a vote of the board, all those in favor of supporting Article 4, signify by saying yes.
Aye.
Yes. Yes.
5 yes.
Thumbs up.
Thank you. Moving on to Article 5. Gotcha. Londonderry Association of Allied Health Professionals Bargaining Agreement. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Londonderry School District and the Londonderry Association of Allied Health Professionals, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $189,307 for the 2025-26 fiscal year. Such sum representing the additional cost items attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits over those paid at current staffing levels in the prior fiscal year. The agreement calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at current staffing levels over those paid in prior years. Fiscal year FY 2025-26, estimated cost $189,307, estimated tax impact 3 cents. FY 26-27, estimated cost $178,173 with an estimated tax impact of 3 cents. FY 27-28, estimated cost $180,960 with an estimated tax of 3 cents. And I think you hit on this, the wording. I don't know if you want to add anything to.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, different collective bargaining group, but kind of the same goals. Invest in our veteran staff, invest in the younger staff, so when there's turnover and a few minor language changes, but the exact same thing, just a different group.
Okay. Yep. Anyone else? Good. All right, I'll open this up to the floor. Seeing no action, bring it back, and I will look for a motion to move Article 5, Londonderry Association of Allied Health Professionals Bargaining Agreement to the deliberative, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah.
Second.
Second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. And who would like to make the motion at the meeting? Sarah? And who would like to second?
I can second.
Tim? And present. Want me to do this one, Kev? Where we were both there?
I can take it both, or we can do.
You want to do both?
I can take both.
Okay. You got it. All right. Moving on. Article 6. Authorization for special meeting on cost items. Shall the Londonderry School District, if Article 4 and/or 5 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 4 and/or 5 cost items only. Estimated tax, 0.
Yep, we just do this one every year just in case the collective bargaining agreements don't go through. This is our backup plan to find a new agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, you voted to move Article 5 to the deliberative. Are you voting in favor or against Article 5?
We did.
You did, I'm sorry.
Yep.
My bad. Be quiet.
Yes, we did. Anyone from the public? Seeing none? Everybody's good?
Yeah. I think, I'm with you, Patrick. I think you voted to, Lisa, in the notes, did you hear both? You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
Article 5, you did the deliberative part, you did the motion to support it.
So I'm not fired.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Can be redundant.
Huh? Yeah. You got me going now, Pat.
Sorry.
All right, let's go, jump back to 5. I'll look for a motion, who would like to support Article 5. I'll say
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, good. We good now, Pat?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we're on 6. Nobody from the public. Who would like to make this motion?
Aye.
Tim, second.
I can do that one.
Amanda. And who would like to present?
I can read it too.
Tim. Okay. And I'll look for a vote in support of this. Article 6, please.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Article 7. School lunch programs and federal funds projects. Shall the voters of the Londonderry School District vote to accept and receive federal grants and other such funds to support the school lunch program and federal projects? Further, to raise and appropriate such funds in a special revenue fund as follows. School lunch program, $1,716,000, and federal projects, $1,579,000, for a total appropriation of $3,295,000. Such funds to be self-supporting through local, state, or federal revenue sources. Estimated tax, 0. Dan, anything to add to this?
Yeah, no, I mean, so basically what this allows us to do is accept those funds. If this were to ever not go through, it always goes through, we would have to come up with a difference, and that would be very bad.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from the public? Everybody good? All right. Who would like to make the motion on Article 7, please?
I can do it.
Sarah? Second?
I'll take the second.
Kevin? And who would like to present?
I can present this one.
Okay, Amanda. And all those in favor of supporting Article 7?
Aye.
Aye. 0. Thank you. Article 8, Special Article Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $520,000 to be placed in the district-wide Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund established in March 2021 school district meeting for the purpose of the maintenance, construction, renovations, improvements, and related professional services to all buildings, grounds, fields, substructures, and infrastructure to the overall property of Londonderry School District. The fund shall provide the funding source for all equipment, structures, professional services, machinery, and materials necessary to sustain efficiency, safety of the district's buildings, grounds, and infrastructure and subsurface that meet the needs of the school district.
Yep, so if you look at the bottom of page 19, which is in our packet, there's the list of the proposed projects. There's roof, there's fire panel upgrades, there's epoxy on bathroom floors, some door frames, some other smaller HVAC stuff, but these are the kind of deferred maintenance spread across the schools that are our highest needs that we want to get fixed next year.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the floor. Anyone from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. And who would like to make the motion for Article 8? I can do that. You, Tim? Who would like to second? Amanda? And present? I can present it. Tim will do that, okay. All right.
I
Could I
think
get a motion on Article 8 to Special Article Buildings and Grounds Capital Reserve Fund to move to the deliberative session, please?
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
I think Lisa and I didn't hear the motion to move it to Article 6 and 7, to move it to deliberative. We heard the motions you made on who was going to present it and what your support was. Did you get it, Lisa? Because I didn't hear it either. I did not.
Whether we support it or not?
No, you got whether you support it and who was doing the plan. You
okay.
didn't make the motion to
All right.
move it to deliberative session for 6 and 7.
Okay, let me finish this, and then we'll go back to that.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of Article 8, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Article 7, School Lunch Program and Federal Funds Project. Do I have a motion to move it to the deliberative session, please?
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And 6, Article 6, authorization for special meeting on cost items. Do I have a motion to move Article 6 to the deliberative, please?
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Don't know where my head is. A lot going on. Article 9, Special Article District Technology Network Infrastructure Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to be placed in the School District Technology Network Infrastructure Capital Reserve Fund, established in March 2019 school district meeting to provide funds for equipment and services for the school district network infrastructure, such as, but not limited to, routers, wiring, switches, access points, wireless network improvements, or any other equipment, software, or service that is necessary for the maintenance, improvement, performance, or management of the district's network. Estimated tax impact, 2 cents. Dan?
So from our IT department, the major investments they're looking for next year is to renew the security software, renew the maintenance of our virtual server hardware, replace some outdated fiber network, server hardware and maintenance, and then our firewall hardware and maintenance. Those are kind of the main areas they're investing in.
Anyone from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back, and I'll look for a motion to move Article 9, District Technology Network Infrastructure Capital Reserve Fund to the deliberative, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Who would like to motion this article?
Can do that.
Amanda? Who would like to second?
I'll second.
Sarah? And present?
I can present it.
Kevin? Okay. And I look for a vote to move, to support Article 9, please. All by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Only took me to Article 9 to get it right? Article 10, Special Article Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the voters of Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $95,000 to be placed in the School District Equipment Capital Reserve Fund established in 2013 for the purpose of funding the acquisition of minor ongoing equipment and tools, such as but not limited to classroom furniture, technology, furniture, building and maintenance equipment, and tools used in the school district, with this sum to come from the June 30th, 2025 fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2025, and no amount to be raised by additional taxation. Estimated tax, 0.
So if you look at page 22 of the packet, you can see the list of the small furniture items that are kind of spread throughout the district and the needs of the schools in that area.
Thank you, Dan. And back to the public. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Look for a motion to move Article 10, Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, to the deliberative, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Who would like to make a motion to bring this to the floor, please?
I can motion.
Kevin?
I can second.
Tim will second. And who would like to present? Want me to do this one? I haven't done one in a while.
Yeah, sure.
All right. And I look for a vote to support Article 10 by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Article 11. Special Article Vehicle and Machinery Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the voters of the Londonderry School District vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the Vehicle and Machinery Capital Reserve Fund established in March 2020 for the purpose of funding the acquisition of vehicles and machinery, with this sum to come from the June 30th, 2025 fund balance available for transfer on July 1, 2025, and no amount to be raised by additional taxation. Estimated tax, 0. Dan?
Yep, so if we go back to last week, the line painter has been moved into the Buildings and Grounds budget, but we just absorb it. We didn't change the overall spending amount for the whole budget, if you've noticed. We just kind of absorbed that, lowered some costs in some areas, so we'll be leasing that as the school board requested. What we have left is, this is not a normal special article we see year after year. It's only when there's large equipment, so we need a mower for the Buildings and Grounds department, and the music department asked for a box truck to kind of basically help our world-class band get to their events. Some of it's for winter percussion, some of it's for their larger trips. But we also will be using this district-wide in other areas, and we feel it's a good investment to support them, but also the other district needs.
Thank you, Dan. And I'll go to the public.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I just have a quick question. A lot of this is being funded with the fund balance. Do you have an estimate of how much you're going to have at the end of the year, that in total?
It's still estimates right now. We'll have a quarter two report on the 28th of January. We feel we'll have that right now based on where projections are, but we want to get through the winter.
Okay, but you will also have plenty left over to keep your bond rate, because I know that's always been an issue. Okay.
That's our hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and I'll look for a motion to move Article 11, Vehicle and Machinery Capital Reserve Fund, to the deliberative, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Who would like to make the motion on Article 11?
I can do that.
Tim? Who would like the second?
I'll second.
Kevin? And present.
I can do that.
You want to do it? Okay, Sarah. And I would look for a vote from the school board on Article 11 in the affirmative of this, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, 5-0. Okay. Takes care of that part. Now we have one. You have...
Yeah. And
Let's do it. Project thing? Yeah, project the issue.
we did receive a citizens petition warrant article today. It's pending voter signature verification, which will happen tomorrow with the, for the supervisors of the checklist. They'll do that tomorrow evening. We anticipate that should go through. Once it goes through and it's verified, this is what we received today. We, the undersigned registered voters of the town of Londonderry, request the school board to insert the following article on the warrant for the March 11th, 2025 town meeting of Londonderry, New Hampshire. Shall the town vote to adopt a tax cap for the Londonderry School District in accordance with RSA 32:5-C as amended effective October 1st, 2025, and amend the school district charter as appropriate. RSA 32:5-C states that in a town that has adopted this paragraph, a tax cap limiting the base amount to be raised by property taxes to last year's base may be adjusted to account for inflation and change in attendance for school districts, according to the following formula. This year's base equals parentheses last year's base times parentheses 1 plus CPI times this year's attendance divided by last year's attendance.
Is the presenter here to talk on this? Come on up. We really haven't had a time to review this. I spent some time.
I know you haven't,
I spent
so-
some time with Amity this afternoon up
Okay.
at the office, but the board hasn't.
I warned you this was coming. This is a may, not a shall. And this was a law that was, went through the House and the Senate and was signed, that was put into place on October 1st. And what it does is it gives you a tool if you so choose to use it. It is a may, not a shall. Now, you all do a great, great, great job, and I'd like to think that we always had the people up there that were going to do a great, great, great job, and I hope that we do. But this is a tool in case you run into something, so that you can use this to cap and keep things in line. Again, the law, I brought the law, but it's the one I marked up, I apologize. Multiple districts are doing this, but the problem that they're having is that they're putting an amount, you know, like, I think it was Kearsarge 1 put in an amount of $27,000. This does not need an amount. It needs to go by a formula. It's very basic. It's very easy to follow. The law shows the definition of what they mean by base amount, attendance, and all that stuff. As I say, this needs to pass, I believe, by 60%. So as I say, it's just an option for the future if you should so need it. Any questions?
So you're saying if if it does pass, gets to 60%, you're saying it's still a may but not a shall be
It will
followed?
always be a may. The law specifically states that they may adopt this. You may utilize this. Let me find the exact words, because it's in here. If a town has a property tax, in accordance with this amendment, may be adjusted is right in the law to account for inflation, may be adjusted, does not have to be. There's a big difference between may and shall at the state level, trust me.
But to your point, you start the paragraph, Christine, to adopt a tax cap for Londonderry School. What is that tax cap?
It's in accordance with the law.
So if we do approve this, we would have to follow this.
You may follow it, because the law says you don't have to do it, it says you may do it. If you adopt it, you have it in your drawer.
Yep.
If you need it, okay? But you do not have to use it and take it out of the drawer, because the law specifically says that you, in a town that has adopted this paragraph, a tax cap limiting the base amount to be raised by blah, 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 may be adjusted. May be adjusted. Doesn't have to be adjusted. You don't have to cap anything because you're not adjusting anything.
Like I said, I get what you're saying. I understand that. I understand the wording. But the way I've looked at it is you would have this if you had a tax cap to use.
No, this is the cap that you can use.
Okay. I guess we'll have to get clarification from
Right,
the attorney.
and read the law. The law is, it's very specific. It's very, well, it's legalese, but it's, I understand it.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be better because the attorney will have a few weeks now to look at it.
Yep,
and then he'll
that's
be
why
here
you
for
get
the
them in
deliberative.
early.
Yeah, I
That's
just
why
want to
you-
make sure we understand where you're coming
Absolutely,
from. and
absolutely.
He can hear what you're saying, and then maybe he can chime in on that at the
Perfect, and
deliberative.
feel free to have him call me, but this is just something that went into effect as a, people are always complaining, right? And yes, y'all did a great job this year, and you have in the past, but in the past, we always haven't done a great job, so
Well,
it's,
So this is where I'm a little confused, because you referenced, and thank you, because you complimented us on the work that we've done. But what if a future iteration of board are all spendthrifts?
Right.
They still won't have to take that out?
no,
of the
they
book?
don't have to, it's not a
They can
shall,
still
it
just
never went
blow
in
out
as.
the money as much as they
It
want?
never went in, unfortunately, in my consideration. It should have gone in as a shall, so if you adopted it, you shall do it.
Right.
But I think what they were trying to do, I was not on the education committee, which was split this year into two because it was such a crazy committee. I think the attempt was because there was so much that this percentage of your tax bill everywhere comes out. We have towns that have their per pupil costs $40,000 a kid, okay? So I think it was put in as a may for maybe towns that would really want to do it, but not a shall for towns that really didn't have to do it. But we never know where we're going to be. We don't know where we're going to be 5 years from now. I mean, we're building hundreds of apartment buildings in town, hundreds. It's just a tool, and it's a new tool, and since it was passed by the state, I thought if I brought it to the town, they would have the option of voting for it. And if they choose not to vote for it, well, then don't complain about what the board is doing. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? You had a chance, so.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing is, when you use the word may, you said may adjust for inflation. Is may only apply to adjusting it
No,
based on
it's-
inflation?
No,
that's why it says and
no,
after
it's,
that.
in a town, may be adjusted to account for inflation and change in blah, 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 blah. It goes on. You
Okay.
may do that.
Okay.
You may adjust your budget based on last year's budget, and then it tells you what's included in last year's budget in the full law. Last year's base may be adjusted to account for inflation and change in attendance for school districts according to the following formula, this year's base, blah, 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 blah.
So, but there's only two things, inflation and the number of students, that simple equation right there.
Yes.
That's it.
Well, no, it's last year's base. You have to take
Yeah,
last year's base.
Yes, I get that. That's a simple
Adjusted for
equation.
inflation or CPI and this year's attendance.
Okay, so what if the state cuts 1/3 of our funding? What do we do? Does that equation still work?
According to the state, it does.
Wow.
According to the state. As far as cutting, the state has to cut their budget. All of the money from COVID is gone. It's all gone. And we, meaning all of us, lived high in the hog with all that money. And trust me, one of the main things that we are forced with doing, we just had to fill out surveys about what, if something is in the budget, would you not pass it? What, if we put this in the budget, what would we put in the budget that you wouldn't vote for it? There is a huge active group, finance committees, and the entire legislation and the Senate are working to cut the budget, not looking to cut it from education. Education is so up in the air right now because of lawsuits going on. But that's not where they're looking to cut it. They're looking to cut what we always call the pork that's in these budgets. They're looking to cut that. It has to be cut. It has to be cut. Some people are saying $1 billion. Some people are saying $500 million. The speakers said $500 million. Some of the other groups are saying we need to cut it by $1 billion. We are all looking. Everybody is looking where to cut money. But it's not looking to cut it from schools. And that's one of the reasons why I feel that now is not the time to increase our EFAs. Percentage-wise, personally, I feel that. I don't think my constituents want it, even though I am a big fan of EFAs. So this is just a tool that you can use. So
Thank you.
it's taking your budget. Has nothing to do with what the state is. When you do your budget and what costs that you need, your budget isn't based on what you're getting from the state. It's what you need, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't you put out what you need?
To the pub, yeah. in our
That's what
budget.
you put out, what you
Absolutely.
need. And then where the money's coming from is a whole separate ballgame. If you're
From
getting
state
some
or
from the
tax
state,
base.
some from this, some from that.
Yeah.
So this doesn't affect the state. This affects what you all, or we all, are spending on the budget. Now, this can be done for the town as well. It's not just for the,
Municipalities.
but the reason why I did it for the school is because you don't need it right now. And I didn't want it to look like a slap at perhaps the town, who people are concerned about the budget more, but more as this is something you can have in your pocket. And people wouldn't be voting on it because, oh, look at the horrible job you did, so we're going to put this in. They maybe would think about it more. Does the town of Londonderry, the district, need this, and not just have it be a knee-jerk response? Does that make sense?
And you plan on attending the deliberative, I hope, to
Of
give
course,
the feel?
of course.
And that way, we'll have our attorney here, he can clarify any questions anybody has.
And as I say, if you speak to him, please tell him, feel free to call me. I have my phone off when I'm at the State House. I'll be there up a lot, but if he leaves me a message, I'll return it, okay? Okay.
I have a couple of questions about this. When you're talking CPI, which CPI are you talking about?
Wait a minute, it's in here. The increase for inflation, or CPI, Consumer Price Index, in the formula above shall be an annual inflation index published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics as of January 1st, or the annual municipal cost index published by the American City and County as of January 1st.
Right, but there's local CPI, there's CPI not adjusted for inflation, there's CPI with energy prices included.
This is
with
the
or without food prices included.
this is, formula above shall be annual inflation as published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
They publish multiple versions of the CPI, so I was an economics major, that's why I'm asking.
I can find that out for you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have
Okay.
the attorney here too.
Yeah,
so-
I can find that out for you. I was a nurse. Maybe that's why I'm the social worker thing more than the CPI, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, that law, could we get it to the school board? Or it can be sent
All you have to
us?
do is go online and
Yeah.
put it up. I can give you the one I marked up. I'd be happy to
That's
do
fine.
that.
And I'll get it to the rest of the budget committee at least.
Because I'm looking at that one too, and it says, under adoption RSA 32.5-C, the following shall apply. And then when I'm looking at this again, it says, in a town or district that has adopted this section, the estimated amount of local taxes to be raised for the fiscal year is shown in the budget certified by the governing body, or the budget committee and posted with a warrant for the annual meeting pursuant to RSA 32.5 shall not exceed, so may.
Wait. When was that adopted?
That says.
At the very bottom.
2023. Okay, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for that correction.
All right, no, you gotta get back to the microphone so people can hear you. So Christine, what you handed me was 32:5-B, and that's referencing 32.5-C?
No.
I'm looking at that right there. And then what's up there?
No, right here. Upon adoption, under 32-5C, the following shall.
Okay, then what's the difference between that dash B on the couple
Because
lines?
that was what this is under.
Okay.
So B part is under.
It says the question should be provisions of RSA 32:5-B.
Oh, me.
Because it says here.
So we definitely need to clear it away.
It looks like it also requires a 3/5 majority. I'm looking at the updated text. Yep, okay, cool.
We're going to have the attorney here too, so
Okay.
there's nothing we can do with it tonight. It's going to go to the deliberative, so. So we'll have an attorney here, but
Okay.
thank you for presenting this.
Sure.
There's not much we can comment on.
I
'cause we're not
understand,
attorneys, and
and that's why I brought it tonight, so
I
that.
see the questions and all that
Yep,
everybody has. so,
absolutely, absolutely. Thank
that-
you.
That's great. I, as one, probably would not vote on this. It's not monetary, and we don't have enough information on it at this point, unless somebody wants to vote not to support a tax cap or a tool, but that's up to you guys.
Everyone's
There's no way
talking.
I'm doing this on the fly.
Yeah. So we'll just leave it status quo, and still want a motion to move it to deliberative.
You don't
It
need
goes
to.
there anyway, so we don't.
It goes.
have to.
automatically.
Yeah,
Okay,
they go.
so- Good, so all set? Everybody's, come on up. Come on, Paul.
Paul Sklark, 20 Woodbine Drive. This article is confusing as all get out. It's evident by everyone on the panel. I don't understand it. The petitioner doesn't understand it. It ought to be probably taken off if Christine would do that. I doubt she will, because it needs a ton of clarification to understand exactly what it is. It is monetary, by the way, Bob. So it's not as if, so I don't even know if this would be advisory.
All right.
So that needs to be clarified as well. If it is advisory, I guess you move forward with it as it's written. I just don't know. But again, this is another attempt by legislators to try to tie the hands of a school department and a budget committee and a school board by imposing certain rules around funding that you don't really need. I don't know what prompted this. I don't know who prompted Christine to present this, where it was formed. I have my ideas about that. But again, it's really ill-conceived, ill-developed petition, and I hope that she'll reconsider even putting it forward, because no one's going to understand it. I think the only thing people will see is tax cap, And that's what they'll glom onto, and that'll be the end of that. And a lot of people like the idea of tax caps, even though they don't really understand the meaning in the context presented.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony DeFrancesco. So this is poorly conceived, poorly written, and generally a bad idea. For years, for decades, the state has passed unfunded mandates and passed those costs onto local towns like ours, increasing tax rates. This is yet another attempt to undermine public schools and budgets in general. I would urge you all to vote this in the negative, 0-5, both from a school board and from a budget committee. The language is hard to understand. The language is confusing. And it's been yet to be tested. In New Hampshire, if an RSA hasn't been tested in a court of law, you don't know if you have something that's legal or not, regardless of who wrote the legislation. I can't stress enough how this is a bad idea. I watch Judge Judy every day, and I can't understand this language. Something's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tax cap has been around since 2011. I know, I know, but I'm just saying, the idea of a tax cap has been around since 2011. The language that is here, I specifically put in the language that was right from the legal document, the law. Specifically put that in, feeling that that was clear because it's stating exactly. So I understand that RSAs can be difficult to understand at times. I don't know how much clearer this could be, so.
Thank you.
Beth Morocco, 4 Westwood Drive. I feel like we've seen this play before. Right at the last hour, we see these final articles being forwarded by Ms. Perez. There's always a lot of verbiage. There's a lot of head scratching from all of the people trying to understand what is being presented here. I didn't see, I'm pretty involved in town, and I didn't see any conversation around with this. I didn't see Ms. Perez, getting feedback from community members, asking, is this something that they want? But again, these last-ditch warrant articles reappear every year in a different form, and last time it was trying to split administrators from educators, when really we are a collaborative group. We cannot have one without the other. And so now this is just a different animal. It's like we're in a different costume, but it's the same thing hiding underneath. And I feel like we are better than this, and I feel like there's just too much seriousness and too much weight in this budget to throw in these last-ditch gotchas. I just feel like we should all be voting no. There's nothing that we can look at this and say, oh, I understand. No one is understanding here. So I think that's a clear zero. A clear no from everybody would really benefit the voters who are also not going to understand what this is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jonathan Esposito, 5 Shelley Drive. I just wanted to offer some clarification that this is not unheard of by any means. Manchester is our immediate neighbor. They have a tax cap that limits the school district's proposed budget to the average inflation rate of the previous 3 years. Franklin, New Hampshire, a little further out, they have a municipal tax cap that limits annual increases in the budget to the National Cost of Living Index. The Newfound School District, they set precedent with their tax cap in 2024. It limited the increase in the amount to be raised by property taxes to 2%. So communities around New Hampshire have successfully implemented this. The particular legalese here may be a bit confusing on the floor. As you said, Bob, the attorney may be able to offer some clarification. But this isn't far out of left field. Communities have successfully implemented tax caps both on the municipal and the school district side, and as somebody who signed this petition, I think we would be well served to do this here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Brian McCauley, Buckthorn Street. Is there a way with this article, so I agree with what some people are saying, I don't know if this is a good or a bad article, to be honest. So when I read it, like I see tax cap, so obviously that puts off one thought. Is there a way to put an example at the bottom, like what that would look like? Like, I could go home, I have to think, okay, what's last year's base? I have no clue. Where would I find that number to be able to do the calculation myself, going on what we were saying here, the CPI index? So I can do the calculation, I just don't know where to find that information and say, okay, what does this mean? So I don't know if, as part of the warrant article, can you add an example to it, or is that not? So people can actually understand what this means. So, okay, this is all lawyer speak, I'm gonna say, because they're lawyers at the State House, right, that wrote this, but it doesn't mean anything to the layperson,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
So I just don't know if there's a way to do that in these articles.
I think for the deliberative session, once we have our lawyer review it and we all understand it better, we could, in theory, apply what this would mean for the current budget as we're looking to the future. You know, we'll never know what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now, but we can at least come up with a theoretical example. I don't know if that helps or hurts it in terms of language, but we could at least explain it in the deliberative session.
And I intend to put articles in the Times also explaining this to people so that they know. But if you all could figure it out for me based on that formula with last year's budget, what it would look like, that'd be a great help, because I was going to try to figure it out. But again, I was a nurse, so.
I have a question though, because doesn't that mean then, like, let's say hypothetically, a bond is passed that has an increase to the tax rate over 20 years of, like, let's say 10 cents for each assessed $1,000. If we're putting a cap on that and now that bond is included in the regular operating budget, doesn't that really restrict regular operating costs because the townspeople voted in a bond later down the road?
Yeah. So in theory, again, we'll try and come up with an example, but, you know, let's say we tease out this, this formula and we realize we could only raise taxes by 600,000. But let's say our taxes are actually going up by 2 million. We would then need to offset $1.4 million in spending in the operating budget.
Correct.
You know,
Yes,
so we'd have
that's
to
my
come up with
thought.
other savings, yeah.
Right.
Right.
It says in here what the different things mean as far as what's included as far as the base in this. Population.
It's the local taxes raised the prior year.
Right.
The base.
Yep. So.
But I get your point. That's why what jumps out at me, like I said, is to adopt a tax cap that we have no idea how it operates. So the wording here, even though it says shall, leaves.
No, it says may.
Or may.
That's very important.
But it says it's an that's why I figure Part C needs to be adopted, a tax, and this is a tool to work with a tax cap. So I need clarification.
Sure.
But we are in no position to support any type of tax cap with this type of information, is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying, at this point. Maybe at the deliberative would be different, but we need clarification, not getting this. So as far as supporting the word here, I truly could not support it, not having the information or time to deliberate or see a formula that would work, that the school district can operate year after year. because to the point of,
But you don't have to use it every year.
that I don't know.
No, you do not have to use it every year.
That's for a lawyer, I'm not
Right.
going to get into that tonight because we just got it today, so.
Right. And I would be happy to have the lawyers at the State House also bring clarification on this, too. So I'd be happy. We have research lawyers and lawyers that do that. We don't have staff, but they do that, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I think one more point of clarification that we need from the lawyers is that it seems like the changes that the state made to this law, according to this, take effect October 1st, 2025. If this passes in March, it takes effect July 1st with the new fiscal year, and it would still be under the 2024 version of that law, which says shall and not may. So that's a 4-month gap where
Wait.
I'm not sure what's in place. You follow me?
Yeah.
So I would love to hear what the lawyers have to say on that.
Sure.
And that's a typo. Because this went into effect October 1st, 2024.
Okay.
So if this
It
thing-
went into effect October 1st, 2024. That is a typo.
Just for clarification, was that what you submitted, though?
Yes, it is.
Is that what everybody signed the petition towards?
Yes.
Then
So it's an invalid position.
It's invalid,
Right.
so it should be removed.
I remove it
Okay.
based on my typo.
Okay.
Well, that was a fun half hour.
No further questions? Okay. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Patrick.
If this stays, I just need some clarification on whether we are voting on it the night of deliberative to show whether we support it or not, because obviously we wouldn't be voting on it next week before we get the lawyers weighing in.
Try that again.
So the Budget Committee votes, in favor or against all of the articles.
Yep, yep.
That concern
Next week.
finances. Right, and we're doing that next Tuesday. Obviously, we're not going to vote on this next Tuesday till we wait for the lawyers to weigh in. So I want to make sure that mechanism works for us to vote on this
But I
at deliberative.
did she just say she was removing it?
Well, yes, but I'm just
Well, I
saying,
need-
just in case.
It's on record, it's not going to be submitted then. So it's off this year.
Okay?
Okay?
I was just going to say the same thing. I think she just removed
She
the
did.
article.
Yep.
Okay, so it's gone?
That's how I took it.
It's out?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good?
Cool.
You guys all good?
Yes.
All right. You guys good? Good? All right. I'd like to have a motion to please close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second?
second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And we do have a segment here. I know there's a few people here just for regular public comment. If they had anything else regarding the school district that we may need to hear from, I'll open the floor for public comment on regular school and community things. Seeing none, I'll bring it back and I'll close public comment. Before I go into we've got one thing to discuss with the superintendent in non-public. So at this point, I will look for a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A:3, Section 2C, please.
So moved.
Motion by Sarah,
Second.
second by Kevin. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please, starting left to right.
Aye, Kevin Gray.
Aye, Tim Porter.
Aye, Bob Slater.
I, Sarah Loveland.
Hi, Amanda Butcher.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.